Can you hear me now? Are we going? Are we good? Let's see. Sorry about that. I think maybe I'm going to turn this down. And okay, you see me. It's taken a while. I'm a little ahead of you. Not much. There we go. Okay, let's see. Sorry. Let's see. Nathan's still here, so before I'm sending him off, I'm making sure it's working. You got a little glow in the dark table here, but it's late night. Hey, that's what it works for, isn't it? And okay, I see people are saying they hear me, and yeah, good. So here, let's start this like a professional. Here, let's do this. Let's see. This is elevator music, waiting for the Theological Insomniac. Good evening. Welcome to edition 5 of the Theological Insomniac. I'm Dr. Randy White, and I'm glad that you are here. I hope that you're having a great time, or ready to have a great time. We'll talk. We'll enjoy. Bye, Nathan. Thanks for your help. And we will just do some good things here tonight, I think, as we come along. And you see, I'm a one-man show, pretty much, although Nathan's been here. He's been helping me out. Let's switch the stars there. There we go. And we are ready to have some fun talking about that news about the normal, about the abnormal, and about the paranormal. Let's talk about it all tonight. Once again, I apologize for all of the little difficulties we had. One streamer didn't work. We went to the second streamer. It didn't work. We finally went to the third streamer. Obviously, we got a problem somewhere, but somehow we got it fixed up. Now, we happen to be, very good sound. I'm glad you got that, Jeff. We switched. I got this mic. I've got this mic. And we hung a blanket to try to tone down that echo a little bit. So we're coming along. As many of you know, if you've been with us before, this is from Studio B, that is The Shed. And we are also going to be, for the next few days, from The Shed rather than the studio. And that is because we have a shelter-in-place order from the governor that came down from New Mexico today. And so she's asked us all to stay home. And fortunately, last fall, with the help of Tom McSorley and Tammy and Nathan and Whitney, we remodeled the shed into a makeshift studio, doing it really just in case. What if there's a really bad snowstorm and I can't get out? I still want to broadcast. And so we've made it, and I think we're on our way and able to work. Yeah, a polo shirt tonight, working from home. You know, I was thinking as I prepared the broadcast, I was like, well, should I change the shirt? Should I put on a jacket? You know, I know what to do when I'm in the studio and it's Ask the Theologian, but when I'm home, I don't know what to do. And we're going to see what happens tomorrow, because I got to see if I have a jacket, because I have them all at the studio, all at the church. I just keep them there, and I put on my shirt and my pants here, and then I go and find a tie and a jacket in the studio. Now you know how it all works. But I think we've got some things to talk about here tonight, and we will, I think, have just a really good time. I've got a number of things that I want to talk about, and one of the first things that I do want to get to is, some of you probably have already seen this, but at dispensationalpublishing.com, we have this blog post. I hope you'll start following it. And to get there, just go to dispensationalpublishing.com and then click the blog button. Now, when you click the blog button, it's going to look something like this, and you'll be able to follow these dates right here. This one was just put today, but by tomorrow morning, we'll have a March 24th, and put that in there, and then just click on the date. It'll pull it up. Now, I've been following for just a short time, really, this fellow named Douglas G. Frank. He is a believer. He's a mathematician, scientist, inventor, entrepreneur, entrepreneur, librarian, teacher, musician, daddy, and husband, and servant of Christ. How's that? President of Precision Analytical Instruments. He teaches. And he's been doing these forecasts. Now, they're mathematical forecasts. Let me just say, I know, and I think you know, that there are some inherent limitations to mathematical formulas. Basically, a mathematical formula is math. And a virus is not necessarily math. Viruses are like humans, they can operate a little bit randomly, but nonetheless, just like, for example, say the stock market and technical indicators, there are some things that you can do that tell us kind of what's the trajectory of this. Now, I'm not smart enough to know how all that works, but I know that if you make good assumptions, you'll have a good outcome, and that really just about everything in the world can be boiled down to a mathematical equation. I might say, by the way, this Douglas G. Frank was one of the first persons who predicted that Donald Trump was going to be elected president. And it's because he was using the math and he put in lots of data. That's the key to it. Data everywhere. If you've got something where you get just full of data, then you can do this. And so he's done this work, and he's given a pandemic forecast. I'll make it a little bit bigger here for you. This is the worldwide pandemic forecast. I want to go down just a little bit to here's cases in the U.S., but let's take this. This one is called Quick Look, and take a look at it. Let's give it a quick look. And what he shows here, again, I'll bring this up a little bit. You can see it. His initial projections, that is when he first came up with this chart, his initial projections, the math told him there would be 180,000 total cases. Let's see, this is in the United States. Let me bring up today's map. Right now there are 46,000 total cases. So I should say that ought to tell us, don't think this is going to go away day after tomorrow. We need to go, according to his projections, from 46,000 to 180,000. That's obviously a huge increase that is going to take place. Now, from his projections, we can see this. See this pink line right here. The pink line is the number of new cases per day. The model says we ought to be expecting that. So, come out here, we ought to expect, I'm going to say it's a little, not a precise graph here, but 11,000 to 12,000 new cases by tomorrow. So again, if we're correct, if the model is correct, then we'll be at, upper 50,000, 57, 58,000 tomorrow. The good news is that if his model is correct, and by the way, this model came out in the beginning, and look how he's been charting the dots against the model. The line was the model, the dots is where it was. He's been charting just right on all the way through in this thing. So as we see it here, this here is the number of total cases. It goes off this particular chart. But the good news is right here, which I believe is the 28th of March, if I'm not mistaken, that is Saturday. What he says is that the cases will increase all week long. So by Saturday, we ought to have that total of 180,000 cases in the United States. Now, nothing encouraging about that to go from 46 to 180,000 this week. That means in many ways there's going to be a lot of scary news, and you know what news media does with scary news, and you know what politicians do with scary news. So with this on Monday, you're kind of prepared for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then what I think is good news, if you can call it that, is that he projects 1,400 total deaths. Now, the bad news is we're at 585, so we've got nearly 1,000 more people that will die of this if his projection is right. Now, I know that some of you are thinking like me, well, math can't predict how many people are going to die, and yet, you know, God created this world as a world of order, and there is such a fingerprint of God in all of this world. I'm just amazed at everything that takes place here, and when you study the intricacies of this world in which we live. So I say all that. I think that you ought to follow this blog here again, dispensationalpublishing.com. Follow the blog, and then he's got he's adding some more. So tomorrow there'll be some more. Not only here's another chart on the deaths, but then there's some by states. I know we have some here tonight from Kentucky. Here he says 4,000 total cases, 120 total deaths. Here's Tennessee, Massachusetts. He's got some countries in here. These are kind of in a random order that I put them in. We'll try to improve that in the future. But countries that are here, more states, there's Texas, South Carolina, Indiana, Arkansas. He does not have some of them because some of them are just don't have that many. Here's Colorado, our neighbor to the north, where he predicts 45 total deaths and 4,500 total cases. And you notice as you watch these, some of these peak a little bit later. Let's see if we can figure out, let's see if this is the 27, 28, 29, 30, somewhere around the 30th, 31st, he's got it peaking for Colorado. So each one of these states are going to be a little bit different. I do know that he's contemplating and discussing now what you do with New York, because New York has so many more cases than anyone else in the United States. Let me pull this chart up here. A little bit different looking chart. This shows New York at 23,000 cases. Now, catch this. This is 23,000 cases of, what was it? Somewhere around 46,000 cases. So you've got close to half of them all in one place. Here's what a statistician knows, and this is not something I would have necessarily known, but I'm following what he's writing. And obviously, that one thing is going to skew the total. And so he's trying to figure out, in the model, what do you do with this? How do you put this in? Do you treat New York separately? Do you break New York down by counties? Do you treat New York as as if it was its own country and take it out of the United States as a whole? What do you do with it? It's kind of like, and he used this example, I think it's a good one. If you take Bill Gates and Randy White, and you take the income of Bill Gates and the income of Randy White, and you add them together and divide by 2, you have the average, right? The mean. And then you could say, well, you know, the average income in Bill Gates and Randy White is, 150 million. I don't know what the number would be, but it would be a lot more than Randy White makes. I can tell you that. It would not be accurate at all, because one guy has all the weight. He skews the numbers. So very interesting, I think, to look at this. So what I would suggest as you watch this is go back in these charts, see what movement is taken, but use this number. Again, this is back on the blog. Use this number right here that the projected peak is March 28th at 180,000 cases. Let's watch this. The projected peak of new cases per day is about 13,000 new cases per day. And we're going to see that this week. We're going to see most of that this week, up to 1,400 deaths. So Some interesting stuff there. Again, we'll have it updated in the morning. As soon as he has his stuff out, we'll work through and get all that updated and get the appropriate comments on there. And I think, again, we'll have some very interesting issues that are there. Okay, and now let me get over here to your chat box here. Thank you, Tara. I'm glad the polo shirt is fine. No need to wear a suit in your shed. Exactly. In fact, come summertime, I'll have shorts on. But you can't see under the table, can you? Tinfoil hat. Yeah, I need to get me a tinfoil hat, don't I? Through there. Mel has a good comment. I read a book on Numbers. I'm assuming it's not the book of Numbers. I read a book on Numbers. God is a God of numbers for sure. So this is very interesting. Years ago, I did, some of you know I used to do what I called 6-hour Bible studies or midnight Bible studies. And on Friday nights, we would start at 6 o'clock and we would go till midnight. And they were just really a lot of fun. And these were in Katy, Texas. And literally, we would have hundreds of people. I was so surprised when I did this. The only reason I did it is because, as some of you know, I just love to teach the Bible. And I could do it, all the time. And so I scheduled these things, and we'd have 2 or 3 of them a year, and they were always fascinating. Well, one of them I did on numbers. Actually, it was split. I did 3 hours on stars. We're going to talk about some stars tonight, I think. And I did 3 of them, 3 hours on numbers. So it was a stars and numbers night. And really some fascinating stuff that you learn as it relates, again, to numbers. I remember, I don't know why this stands out, but one of the things I learned in that study is that there is no ear of corn that has an odd number of kernels. I thought that was fascinating. It's like, okay, I'll bet you that ear of corn doesn't have an odd number of kernels. Now, a worm might have eaten one, or one might have rotted and fallen out or something, but the actual number of kernels it had, they're an even number. Now, as you begin to think about that, it begins to be, it's neat trivia. It's not quite as impressive when you just remember, oh yeah, cells divide, and this is what happens when it makes the ear of corn. But there's so much mathematical precision in the world today. So you're right, it really is fascinating stuff in what you've got. And Mel's exactly right. Insurance companies more than likely use the same models. I think they have to. What do they call that? The something tables about how long you're going to live and whatnot. Well, they've also got tables, and they hire guys like this to say, what's my odds of this guy getting in a car wreck and this girl getting in a car wreck, or this man living, long enough to have to pay out, and all these and that's how they price it. And they must do pretty well, otherwise they would go out of business, right? And insurance companies tend to be old and established and not go out of business, and they tend to have nice posh offices, which tells us that, you would look and you say, well, you can't use a mathematical model to figure out how much to charge Randy White for life insurance. But they can, and they do it all the time. And that's exactly what you've got going on here. And it really is very fascinating kind of stuff. And now, I think Linda's right. She says this is going to cause a panic if it happens fast. And I think that we're going to have a few days here when these things are just going up, 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 and people are going to be saying, is this going to happen forever? When is this going to stop? I mean, they're going to look at the trajectory. Now, the problem with where you and I are is all we can do is, because of our limited math, I suppose you can say, is, let me get here to this COVID. I'm not sure if I can make this chart do what I want to do. All we can do is, let me see if I can move that chart. There we go. We can see that. And we just look at it and say, oh my goodness, look how these are rising. It certainly won't be long until every one of us has it. But the mathematical models, again, are able to predict when it will crest and begin to go back down. Now, another thing that you need to know is that when it does go down, and let's go ahead and say the 28th of March, that would be this Saturday. Now, this line, the total number of cases here, does not begin to go back down yet. It goes out farther. I think someone had a comment on that. And that's because, let's just say you have 13,000 cases, or look at this, let's see, on cases per day. So you got that's many cases per day. And this next day down here, what have you got? 11,000? 11,500? Well, that doesn't calm the public too much. To say, oh, wow, we only had 11,500 today. But it's going in the right direction. One day is not going to calm it. 2 days is not going to calm it. Honestly, probably the public is not going to be calmed until we're back down here to, say, 5,000 cases a day. And that is April 3rd, 4th, 5th, somewhere right in there. That I would say right in this early April week between the 2nd and the 9th of April is probably when a little bit of sanity is going to start coming back. But even at that point, there are going to be some who say, no, let's be careful. And there's some degree of reason for that, because you can turn right around and start a second wave of it. And I think he's worked on including that, because he's got some that are ahead of the curve on the downhill slide, like China, for example, and he's looking at those particular numbers. But back to Linda's comment here on the fear and the panic that comes about. I think that this week, in the minds of many, could very well be a one of fear and panic. As a matter of fact, in those who maybe haven't taken it seriously, they might come along, now that some of them were utterly dismissive at first, and now they come along and saying, this isn't going away. My goodness, I was wrong on this. It's 10,000 cases today, 11,000 cases, 12,000, 13,000 cases. And we've gone from 500 deaths to 700 deaths to 900 deaths to 1,100 deaths. Where's this thing going to end? And that a new group will begin to panic. I think by you watching these numbers every day, it really can give you great comfort, and it can give you some tools to help someone else. To say, hold on, let's see where this thing's going. It will peak, and here's a guy that has been pretty accurate, not only on this, but on a lot of things that he's projected down through the years. And I think this is going to start going down. Let's watch it. Watch it in your state. Watch it for the country. Watch it for the world, for that matter. And let's see exactly how this stuff comes about and see what it takes. So, you've got the 180,000 total, as Bob mentions. The 180,000 total is not this Saturday. That number is going to keep going up, even though the number of daily cases added to it is going to start on the decline. So there's a little lag on obviously before that total number starts to come down. And that's when, unfortunately, some people die, and that takes that number down. And then also, in addition to that, of course, many, many more people begin to start healing, because you notice on here's another chart here, but 582 deaths, only 295 recovered in the United States. That's not very good at all. One of the things I did notice on this particular chart, it's got one thing that I haven't seen on anywhere else, and that is the number of serious cases, which it's got at 1,000. Now, let me do one question the assumption things here. I don't know, I couldn't find on this particular website, I don't know how they define serious or critical. I don't know if that means hospitalized. I heard Governor Cuomo today, and he was saying about 13% need to be hospitalized. And of that 13%, 20% of the 13% of those need to be, how do you figure that? Is that, let's see, that would be 2.5%. Did I do my math right? This is why I follow some other mathematician. But I think that's about 2.5% need ICU. So I don't know if these 1,040 serious critical are those in ICU. I would assume that's probably what it is. But, even with that, again, we're not at the peak, so do we double or triple that? Where do we go? How many ICU beds do we have? I'm sure that's been discussed in the last few days. I don't have that number in my head here. It does probably say there's a weakness in our system as it relates to the number of ICU beds that are available in the United States. And we ought to look at that and say, why do we have a problem there? What is the issue with all of that? But nonetheless, I think it's very interesting. I think that it is a study in assumptions, and all of us like to question the assumptions. I think we should follow these charts. So do me a favor, go to actuarial. Thank you, Larry. That's the word I was trying to think of, the actuarial tables or charts. And these are the people that do that. Sorry for the glow-in-the-dark desk here. I've got to get in the studio I have a desk. It's an old desk that came from, I think, from Mexico back in the 1800s. I bought it at an auction, or what do you call it? An auction house. It wasn't really an auction. You go in and a state house kind of thing. And he was going out of business, and I just happened to walk in on my way to the post office, and I talked him into a really good deal. In fact, I bought the chair I sit in, not this one. I bought the chair I sit in, and that table, and it doesn't have any shine on it, and it's so much better, especially when you're doing green screen. We don't have green. We have green screen up here in studio shed, and so the green reflects off the table, and that makes things sparkle. And when it's late at night, I sometimes get sidetracked. But actuarial tables. So what I'd like for you to do to come back to where the train was on the track is follow that blog. And do me a favor and share the blog too on Twitter and on Facebook, wherever, email, however you want to share it. That helps get the word out about this work here. And I appreciate that. Venus says, hope Randy does another Stars and Numbers seminar for us. That would be awesome. I'm going to someday. For those of you who don't want to wait, I'm actually going to talk about some stars tonight. I'll get there. One set of stars anyway. But for those of you who don't want to wait, at dispensationalpublishing.com, we do have Bullinger's book on stars and numbers. He's got one on each. Very intellectual, heady stuff. He doesn't write for the common man today. Maybe he wrote for the common man in 1900, late 1800s, whenever he wrote those books, but certainly not common man writing today. But it's not out of reach. I know you all, and you're pretty smart people, and you could handle it. And it's interesting. If you like the stuff about stars, or you like the stuff about numbers, get that. Now, he teaches more of the significance of the numbers than some of the math behind our creation. But the math behind our creation is just really fascinating, and there's so much there. You know, one of the things when I was studying numbers that was so fascinating again to me, and I actually experimented and tried this out. You can take a piece of rubber, like say a balloon, just cut a balloon open, and put it over a coffee can. It's a very, scientific experience. And if you've got a little speaker or something that you can play, maybe even on a keyboard, that kind of keyboard, electronic, where you can turn it on, set it on the organ setting and play, maybe a middle C or a D, E, F, whatever, the letter Q. If you just play that continuously with that can, vibrating that balloon, and put some, say, sugar on it. And you would think the vibrations they would dance randomly until they fell off the edge. It's not what happens. They actually dance in pattern and they make a geometric pattern. It's actually fascinating to see. And when you switch notes, they dance to another geometric pattern. Beautiful patterns. You could make art out of this stuff. It's God's art, really. And it's just fascinating. And then you go back to the C and they dance back to the C pattern. Just, again, absolutely fascinating. And this is God at work. Late night stuff. I mean, it's fascinating. So, here in just a minute, let's study some stars. I want to talk about the constellation. We'll call it a constellation. It's actually a Decan Bootis tonight. I mentioned it the other night. It's such a fascinating, bright star out there. Arcturus is the star, actually. Can you hear me now? How's that? Sorry about that. Maybe we are on our way back. I'm going to make sure you're hearing me before I go on there. So if you got me, go ahead and give a little thumbs up here. Yeah, I need one of those little finger talkers. That's what I need, isn't it? Okay. Roger says, I hear something. And yes, I see some yeses here. Okay. Sorry about that. Once again, when you work late at night, you do it all by yourself. And fortunately, Nathan was still nearby, so he ran when I called him. Thanks, whoever sent me the text, by the way. I appreciate that. That is helpful. I was giving the most beautiful speech that had ever been given, and now it's gone. I don't know what the speech was about. I forgot that now, but you all can tell me where we were when we left off there. But yeah, I appreciate all of your patience tonight with all sorts of the technological issue. You thought I was raptured, right? It was the rapture button. That's what it was. Yeah, sorry about that. I think what I was saying is that, yeah, Allison, thank you. You're going to have to repeat all that. Okay. I think what I was saying is that I heard President Trump today speaking positively for the first time. President Trump was saying, we got to get back to work. It's time to get back to work. And then I think that okay, I was on the constellations. I'll get back to that. I think that President Trump and the lady doctor, I don't remember what her name is. She scares me. She seems kind of mean, but nonetheless, she kept talking about, we're crunching the numbers. We've got the data. I think they see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I do agree that we've got to get back to work. I was listening to an interview, I think it was on the Fox Business Network, and whoever that was saying, we got to get back to work. We cannot extend that. I think that's probably our biggest danger now, is that we make decisions that extend this stay-at-home thing too long. Now, you know my opinion on that. Through all that. Okay, constellations, that's what we were talking about. We, yeah, that was my Trump impression. Greatest speech ever, greatest. It was huge. If I just had the hair, now I could do it, couldn't I? But I tell you what, Scott has an interesting comment here. I'll just quote. Trump needs to rein in that little rat Fauci. Am I saying his name right? I've always struggled with that. For whatever reason, I'm with you, Scott, that I haven't really trusted him from the beginning. I think the reason I didn't trust him, or I don't trust him, is he's the media darling. I saw one article. Was it The Atlantic or no? It was the American Thinker. And I actually didn't read the article. I just saw the headline in the American Thinker talking, raising the red flag on Fauci. I think there's something there. I haven't had the time to research it. I thought I would for one of these programs. I haven't done it, but I think he might be bad news. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but I tell you, all the leftists love him and all the media loves him. That makes me very suspicious whether or not we should love him. I don't know. Dr. Deborah Bricks, that's the lady, and she probably knows her stuff. She just seems kind of scary. Sorry, Dr. Bricks. Mel, she says this was a test, a cattle herding exercise. If it was, I am always a little bit hesitant to think that government is that smart, but it might have been a test of our government, might be strings behind the government, to see how easily they can even manipulate the government. But we've talked about this here on these late night episodes and in some of my Facebook posts and my blog posts. I think I'm with you here. If it's a test, let's just leave it at this. If it's a test, the world utterly failed the test. So few saying, wait, I still don't get it. And I know it's been explained 10,000 times, but when you've got, I think President Trump even mentioned today, something like 20,000 flu deaths, and a lot of those are younger people. And that's in the United States, and yet the world just passed right by. What is that? We talked about the boogeyman here the other night and all those kind of things. That is here. Bob, still working in Minnesota since our main business is a pig factory. Good thing it's not the swine flu, right? I was reading about the swine flu just yesterday, and I read that the swine industry really put pressure on the government to quit calling it the swine flu. That's racist! They didn't actually say that, but they were putting a lot of pressure because they were calling it the swine flu, and that's when it became H1N1. And look up the deaths on H1N1, just out the roof there, crazy. Tom, that's interesting. In the Ozarks, I saw a news article today, people in Springfield, Missouri wanting the government to shut down the state for 3 months. If I was the governor of Missouri, I'm not even sure who the governor of Missouri is, but is it Missouri that's got the lady senator that's been on somewhat, and she seems pretty sane, and she's been talking some sanity through all this, if it's the one from Missouri. I may have mixed up. I remember there was Claire McCaskill, who was not sane at all, but maybe it's Indiana that has got the female senator there that's been doing a pretty good job, the Republican senator. But, let's say I was the governor of Missouri, and I hear that, they want me to shut down the government for 3 months. I don't know what kind of numbers it would take to convince me to do that. That would just be so unbelievable. You just can't survive. The medicine would kill. And, let's have a conversation someday even about chemotherapy and some of those kind of things on whether or not some of those treatments are worth it. But we're almost there in the United States, and it's actually yet to be seen if we are there. Can they bail us out to the degree that a business can make it and individuals can make it? These people, I've got a couple of friends that are without work now suddenly, and these are not the kind of people that, okay, I'll live off my savings. No, they lived off their savings before 10 a.m. And that just doesn't work there through all of that. Let's see. I check my text message here because Nathan sent me a message, I think, although I can't read it. But I guess make sure everything's going okay there. It's a casual broadcast here tonight, isn't it? With all of the work that is happening there. Okay, I think we're back to running. Everything seems to be going good. Okay, now with that, let me get into a couple of other things here. I tell you what, here's a fun thing that we can do. I think I've got, let me pull up. Yeah, here we go. Two things. Let me show you some old newspaper clippings. Here is one from the Iola Daily Index. We got some Kansans on here tonight. Iola, Kansas, I presume it is, November the 23rd, 1907. I love looking at old newspapers and finding dispensational articles and other things. I just happened to run across these two articles. And this one is about Reverend Hilscher to lecture. This is again the Iola Daily Index, a major newspaper in Kansas. In 1907, he's to speak on Bible topics each Sabbath morning. Now let's read and decipher that. It says here, Reverend S. Hilscher. I looked him up. I couldn't find anything else about him. Pastor of the Presbyterian Church. I suppose the Presbyterian Church in Iola. Is Iola a town? The Iola Daily? Yeah, Iola, Kansas. So probably the Presbyterian Church in Iola, Kansas has been asked by Miss Maud Monroe, the leader of the altruistic club of the church. What is altruism? Somebody, I know what it is, kind of, but somebody put a definition there and see what we've got on altruism. But the Presbyterian Church had an altruistic club. I think that's the thinkers. It's probably like you and me. We probably would have joined it. So Ms. Maud Monroe was the leader of the altruistic club, and she invited the pastor to give a series of Bible lectures before the club. These lectures will be given in the study of the church. It's been 1907 since the church had one of those. Each Sabbath morning at 9:45, beginning next Sabbath. Now, I presume they mean Sunday. It's a Presbyterian church. It's in Kansas. I think that in 1907 in Kansas, the sort of biblical Jewish terminology of worship day had not been used accurately, was carried out, and that people in Iola, Kansas knew when they said, hey, we're going to have these each Sabbath morning at 9:45 beginning next Sabbath. They meant Sunday school. This is 1907, before Sunday school was very popular, but I don't think it means Saturday. She goes on to say, or the article goes on to say, the club urges the men of the congregation and the city in general to hear these lectures. I suppose that the reason they urge the men of the congregation is probably because the altruistic club, I'm going to guess, was a ladies' club. May be wrong on that, but so they wanted the men to join them and the congregation and the city in general. Come 9:45 next Sabbath, and let's do this. Now, here's what caught my attention. The following are the subjects that will be discussed. 1, a dispensational view of the ages. Wow. A Presbyterian, oops, got that behind me there, don't I? A Presbyterian who is giving a dispensational view of the ages. Amen. Amen and amen. Let's go back to it. A cosmical view. That's the cosmology, where the world came from. View of the ages. A dispensational view of sin. A dispensational view of redemption. A dispensational view of the race. I suppose he means the human race, and probably I would suppose he's talking about Israel in there. The resurrections, the judgments, and all things centered in Christ. These lectures will all be simple enough for anyone to understand, and yet full enough of thought that any man must think who has a thinker. Isn't that good? Any man must think who has a thinker. Thank you all for having a thinker. So Reverend Hilscher, the Presbyterian minister, was going to speak on these things. Because there's enough of these titles that go through, and, once again, a dispensational view of the ages, of sin, of redemption, of the race, it looks to me like this was a Presbyterian dispensationalist in Iola, Kansas. Let's just look up here. Presbyterian Church, Iola. Kansas. See if we can find out anything. Yeah, here we go. It is, beautiful place. There, Iola First Presbyterian Church of Iola, Kansas. They've Presbyterian Church USA. I guarantee it's probably been since 1907 since they had a dispensational sermon. Let's meet the staff. How much money you want to put on the woman pastor? Oh, let's see. Well, that's an administrative assistant, the organist, the jack of all trades. Oh, video technician. She should have been here tonight. Webcast and sound technician. They got quite the support staff. The custodians, the handbell director, the clerk of session. Is that Corey Ten Boom? No. April Hudson, the clerk of session. Ed Miller's the treasurer, financial secretary, moderator of the deacon. You need a moderator of the deacons, that's for sure. Sunday soups. Oh, got a director of Sunday soups. Must be a food kitchen. Interesting. They must not have a pastor. I don't know. The lovely little church there. Little church building anyway. The point being on that, Presbyterianism has gone somewhere way off the rails, and what's happened to Presbyterian? You had Lewis Sperry Chafer and these others that comes through there. But I'm with Mel. Yeah, sounds great. Hey. If Reverend Hilscher would come, I did look him up because one of the reasons I look these up is I find kind of unknown dispensational writers who wrote some really good stuff. And so then I look to see if Reverend Hilscher wrote anything, but I can't see that he did. Probably got busy in the soups ministry. Altruistic. Dan gives a definition. Unselfishly concerned for or devoted to the welfare of others as opposed to egotistic. Animal behavior of or relating to behavior of an animal. That's interesting. I'm with you, Mel, on that, on her comment. I'm not a fan of female pastors or presidents. As a matter of fact, I think a female pastor is a little bit of an oxymoron. But hey, while we're on old newspaper articles, let's look at one more because here's a good one from the Los Angeles Herald, June of 1908. I ran across this one. It was on the same page as a dispensational article that I was reading. The dispensational article wasn't that good. It's not worth spending our time on. But this you don't want to meet. Again, you don't want to miss. It's the Los Angeles Herald, 1st of June, 1908. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Pajama-clad cop catches kiss-hungry robber. They should have won a Pulitzer Prize just for the headline. Pajama-clad cop catches kiss-hungry robber. In the day of clickbait, I would have clicked. Wouldn't you? Now, you want to know more, don't you? See? It worked. Let's see about the pajama-clad cop that catches the kiss-hungry robber. He apologizes to girl in case for appearing in negligee, bolts for villain, who sits down and awaits him. Oh, we got to read this. Came from New York, May 31st. Henry Brown, a little man who says he's a clerk at 160 East 93rd Street and looks as harmless as a can of condensed milk. This was in a newspaper. A little man who says he's a clerk looks as harmless as a can of condensed milk. I've never thought of saying that. I might have to use it again. Is, according to Miss Grace Livingstone, who lives at the Manhattan Hotel, a very desperate person indeed. But he looks as harmless as a can of condensed milk, Miss Grace. But come on. Henry was arraigned in the Yorkville court, charged with felonious assault, and held for further examination. He was captured by Lieutenant Tom Crystal after a chase of a block at 78th Street and Lexington Avenues. Money better than kiss. In this particular environment that we've got right now in 2020, kisses is all you're going to get because the money's gone, honey. Crystal, who lives at 146 East 78th Street, heard Miss Livingston's cries when Brown, this is the guy that is harmless as a can of condensed milk, after demanding a kiss, which she refused, dragged her into the doorway of the house and, she says, declared, as he didn't like her face anyhow, her money would do instead. Lady, you're too ugly. Can I just have some money? I give up on the kiss. Let's go for the money. You can't, I mean, the truth is stranger than fiction, right? Brown backed up his demands with a revolver like a young Gatling gun, she says. Miss Livingston held Brown's shooting arm and screamed for help. Well, good for Miss Livingston. She probably should have done more than scream for help. Lieutenant Crystal, who even in his dreams is a hero, heard her cries and, though garbed only in his pajamas, dashed downstairs and gave chase for Henry Brown after apologizing for his negligee to Miss Livingston. First of all, I want to know why Lieutenant Crystal's wearing a negligee in the first place. Did that mean something different in 1907? Who knows? Pushed the wrong button there. Back to the news now here. In the East 67th Street station, Miss Livingston was emotional. He tried to steal my purse, she sobbed. The purse, which was placed in the archives for evidence, was found to contain 7 copper cents, a program of the Spooner Stock Company, a packet of hairpins, a powder rag, and blueprints of a Merry Widow hat. I hadn't planned to do this, but what is a Merry Widow hat? Does anybody know what a Merry Widow? Oh, okay, I just pulled up a picture. A bunch of pictures. I guess that's a Merry Widow hat. This one here is very, very Merry Widow hat. Oh, look, same year, 1908. Didn't we say this was 1908? So the Merry Widow hat. Back to, so she had blueprints of a Merry Widow hat. I'm not sure what that means, blueprints of a Merry Widow hat. Is that like blueprints. That is quite the hat when you got to have an architect for it. Got the blueprints for the hat. Wow. Let's continue on. It is thought, the papers. It is thought that Brown, acting for a foreign government, I knew the Russians were behind it, I knew it, may have been after the blueprints. Ladies, they're trying to get your hats. Those Russians. The revolver described by Miss Livingston could not be found on Brown or in the neighborhood, and the police think it may have been a spirit weapon. A spirit weapon. But Miss Livingston is sure she saw it or she would not have screamed. Just for that, Lieutenant Cargan held her as a somebody gonna have to look that up for us. Give us a definition of contumacous? How do you say? I don't know. C-O-N? Is that a T? I think it's a T. U-M-A-C-I-O-U-S. Witness. That was worth staying up for, wasn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Once again, pajama-clad cop catches kiss-hungry robber who decided he didn't really want the kiss because he's actually a spy for the Russian government. It didn't say the Russian government, but I'm sure it was the Russian government who wanted the blueprints for her Merry Widow hat. Woo! Oh, the research that we do here for our late night programs. Catatomic. Oh, yeah. Sounds delusional. Yeah, I think maybe so. Okay, let's see here. I've got some. I want to go to those stars. While I go to the stars, somebody's looking up contumpituous, just to make sure. Maybe we ought to do a follow-up. I'll research, see if we can find out. Scott's trying to tell me how to say it. I think I'm going to skip that word. I'm never going to use that word. I've made up my mind. But I'd like to know what it means anyway. And we ought to check, just to see. Let's do this follow-up sometime and see if we can find out what happened to Henry Brown and Miss Grace Livingston. Wouldn't it be ironic if they got married and their great-grandson is Joe Biden? Oh, no, it's probably actually Donald Trump because this is a Russian thing. Collusion, that's it. Contumacious is what Lynn from Oahu says. Contumacious. What time is it there in Oahu, Lynn? It must be not so late that you can't actually pronounce a word. I appreciate you putting that out for me. Contumacious. Am I saying that right? So Dan, here he's got contumacious, a Latin adjective, contumux, means rebellious or in specific cases showing contempt of court. Contumacious related to contumely, meaning harsh language. Okay, Scott says archaic. Archaic, I would think so. Especially used of a defendant's behavior, stubbornly or willfully disobedient to authority. Mel, you know who you are, right? That's the word that is given there. Contumacious. The word for today, contumacious, and once again, Lieutenant Cargan. Lieutenant Cargan held her as a contumacious witness. She's the one that was getting attacked. And now she's held. This is worthy of some more research here. Once again, this is the Los Angeles Herald of Los Angeles, California, the 1st of June, 1908. I don't know. You think there's anything else good on that page there? Let me close that out. Oh, this is kind of good here. This is not a picture of her, is it? News of illness brings sorrows of actress's host of friends, Miss Alice Treat Hunt. I wonder if she had coronavirus. We got the amusements before and after. Mistress Nell, Ellen Beach, William Collier, Caught in the Rain, How Baxter Butted In, that was probably a good one. And look, the Los Angeles Ostrich Farm, got a little, I can't quite read that writing there, but city sales room, if you're needing an ostrich. The Bimini Hot Springs Bath and Plunge. Trying to get that where I can read that well. Let's see. All I can read, it kind of makes me nervous. It talks about there's a great free exhibition on Friday night. I don't know, but in Taos, New Mexico, I would not recommend that you go to a free exhibition at a hot springs. It might be some lieutenant in a negligee. Who knows? So, 7:30 p.m. in Oahu. Nice. And yeah, Vina, 1:30 p.m. tomorrow, isn't it? She can tell us the future. Okay, so I promised some stars. Let me get some stars. And while I'm doing that, you got some topics you want to talk about tonight? I'm happy to talk about them. But let's go to some stars here. Hey, this came across the screen, and I'll get to the stars. First, you're the first to know about it. Here it is. The breaking news. Beep, 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 beep. We have breaking news here at the Theological Insomniac, and that is that Dispensational Publishing is putting out a new book this week, very timely. And the book is by Brian Ross, our friend Brian C. Ross, who wrote the King James Bible in America, and J.C. O'Hare, The Origins of the American Grace Movement. And now he has written Don't Pass Over Easter, a new defense of Easter in Acts chapter 12, verse 4. It's just a small book, but Acts chapter 12, verse 4 talks about how Herod kept James until after Easter. And those who hate the King James Bible laugh and mock and say, oh, anachronism, how crazy they use Easter. What idiots those King James Bible people are. And then the King James Bible people, they use it to prove, from their point of view, that Easter actually was a pagan holiday and that Herod was holding him until after that pagan holiday. Now, Brian Ross, I don't want to give away the cake here, but Brian Ross he argues against both of those and gives a great defense of why the King James used Easter in Acts chapter 12, verse 4. So once again, don't pass over Easter. You'll put all that together when you get the book. I think maybe as early as tomorrow, but if not tomorrow, Wednesday, it'll be for sale. Now, because Easter is coming up, we're doing this. It's a special deal on this particular book. If you order this week or anytime before the books come, you actually will get an immediate download of an ebook of this. So you'll have both the ebook and then you'll get the print version. The print version is going to be a couple weeks before it ends up there, but be watching for that. Of course, I will tell you some more about all of that. Now, I want to talk about stars. Let's talk about some of the stars. There, I just switched my star background. Because the last several nights I have just been noticing, you're correct. I'm sorry, Dan. Thank you. It was Peter. He had already killed James. He wanted to kill Peter. Thank you for correcting me in Acts chapter 12, verse 4. So he was going to keep Peter till after Easter. Check out that book. Really a good one. And then I'm going to come back to Scott's question, the bonus question. So let me talk stars here just a little bit. As we've already talked, I've taught about stars before. I love stars. I do not consider myself an expert. I can't just go up in this night sky and point to everything, but probably better than average anyway, in being able to see it. And we have just, as I've mentioned so many times before, just such beautiful stars here in New Mexico. New Mexico is one of the best places for stargazing, and star tourism even. But there is a star that I've noticed just right out over here, and the star is actually Arcturus. You may have heard of it before. It is part of the constellation called Bootes, Bootes. And I want to talk about Bootes just a little bit. Now, Bootes is actually what you call a decan. It is a constellation. And for someone who doesn't know constellations that much, then it's a constellation. It's called Bootes. They might call it a minor constellation. But what you've got in the sky is in the path that the sun travels from east when it comes up in the morning to the west when it goes down in the evening. Obviously, I'm using my own experience there and in speaking about that. But you've got the pathway of the sun is called the ecliptic, and within that path, a band of 20 degrees either direction. So you got 40 degrees altogether. That band is the zodiac. And within that band, that's where the 12 constellations of the zodiac are. And those are the ones, of course, you know, like Virgo, for example, and Leo. So those are the 12 main constellations. Each one of those 12 has at least 3 decans. And Bootes is a decan of the constellation Virgo. Virgo is where this circle story begins, like looking at a giant film strip. Now, I want us to talk about Bootes here for just a moment. I just got raptured out of there. That was nice, wasn't it? If you're just looking in the night sky, it's fairly hard to pick out. And it's hard to pick out because you've got this star Arcturus. That's the one you can see. Arcturus is the 4th brightest star in the sky. And right now, it is the brightest star in the sky. It's very bright. You'll look at it, I don't know, let's say 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the evening. And it looks to be a planet, but it's not a planet. It looks to be a planet just because it's so bright, especially this time of year. So it's a spring star. And Arcturus, again, very bright. Now, because of the other stars that are involved with it, unless you're in a place that doesn't have a lot of night sky, you might not even see the other stars that kind of make that. Now, what you have, you can't recognize this right off, but what you have is a man here. He's actually a hunter. I'm going to switch the pictures here. Here he is. You notice in the left knee, that is Arcturus. That's the star there that you can see. He's got a sickle in his hand. He's a harvester. He's got a sword. He's a warrior. And this is Bootes. Now, Bootes, as we get to know him, again, he's a decan of Virgo. Virgo is the one, of course, that I need a little slower entry there, don't I? Virgo is the one that holds the branch and the seed. In terms of the witness of the stars, Virgo says a virgin will conceive, a branch will come forth, the seed. That is spoken of through the scripture. So Virgo prophesies, if you will. Her line is, remember in Psalm it says the heavens declare the glories of God, the stars, they each send forth their line. Their lines have been heard like the lines of a play. Their lines have been heard in all the earth. So Bootes is actually the fulfillment of the seed promise, or he is the grown up child of the Virgo. Let me get out of the way here in a quick little rapture there so that you can see here. The fulfillment of this great seed promise. He's the one that would come, bear the penalty of the sins of the ones really who brutally rejected him. That is, he's a picture of the Lord. And he is the Lord of the harvest. Now, once again, I want to pull and switch these pictures once again here real quick. And again, you look at those stars, do you see that same guy? Probably not. But the artist rendering down through the ages, going back to the earliest times, has always been this guy. And he has always been a harvester and a victor. Now, there's something that's pretty interesting. Every time you see a picture of him, after the resurrection, especially. Of course, we don't have a lot of art that goes prior to that, but he always is in this position of kind of kneeling, I guess you could say. But if you look at him, he's standing on his right foot, and his left foot is sort of dragging behind there. Now, for anyone, of course, who is a student of the Word, you are reminded that, let's see, get my pictures all squared away here. You are reminded that, I'll get there we go. You're reminded that, he shall crush the serpent on the head, and the serpent will bruise his heel. So this is that picture, if you will, of the victor, but he's been through battle. He is prepared for battle and part of battle, but he's got this wound, if you will. And he comes through. I think that it so speaks of Jesus as the victor. Now, let's talk about some of the stars here. Buddhist, by the way, and you can see in this artist rendering, it means the coming one. The coming one. I don't know about you, but I think that's just spectacular that here, when I see that bright star out there, I can be reminded that the Redeemer is coming. And this is one of the fascinating things about learning the stars. And I see that Mel said, let's see, something here. Were these stars in place before Adam fell, or were the constellations changed after the fall? I think before Adam fell. We'd go back there and talk about that in just a moment. But I'm going to say before Adam fell. And I think that all of these, let's take the 12 of the zodiac. I know that's been perverted down through the years. The 12 constellations of the zodiac. And then let's give them, let's say 3 each of the decans, so 36 of those. And all of this through the course of a year, while the zodiac comes, it actually doesn't take a full year to see all 12 of them. But really, you got this film strip, if you will, to use an old term, going above, and Adam is given the story. He's given the witness. And he then is able to say, hey, Seth, see that bright star up there? That is Arcturus. Arcturus, by the way, is an ancient name, and Arcturus it actually is where Buddhists get his name. It means he cometh. He cometh. So go out there tonight, just walk out, take your laptop, your phone with you, whatever. You can get a little app. I use the one called Planets. It's free. You can hold it up there and it'll show you all those things. You will need to have some glasses if you're going to use Planets, because it's awfully small print, kind of dim print, which reminds me that this is this week's special, the giant print reference Bible. Use coupon code Wednesday. But Arcturus, he cometh. That's what that bright star is. Arcturus, he cometh. It's this picture of the warrior who has fought the battle on your behalf. He has the wounded leg to sort of show his battle scars, if you will. And he's got the sickle in his hand. He's coming as the harvester. And I just think it's a beautiful thing. There's some other stars in here. Let's see, one called Shmat, the one who rules. And let me see if I can get out of the way here. See if, let's see if there's a letter E. I don't have a pointer where I can point to these here. But the one who rules, Al-Katurops is the branch. Of course, that's in Arabic, Al-Katurops. Mizar or Izar, depending on what language you look at, is the preserver. These are some of the names of the stars and what they mean. Mufridi is the one who separates. Nakar, the pierced. And Murga, the bruiser. How's that for interesting stuff there? That is the star, the constellation Bootes that is so visible this time of year. Arcturus, again, is the star that you're going to see. It would be in the, let's see, east, west. I'm going to say just a little to the northwest, mostly west. West northwest, and I don't know, 30 degrees up into the sky, somewhere about that, just kind of above the tree line. Come on, see. I'll show it to you, and we will just take a look at that. Okay, let me get back to my charts right here. Okay, the bonus question was, what theologian coined the term Passover? Thanks for the question, Scott. And I believe I have the answer. You tell me if you think you agree with me, Scott. You can reply in the comments here. But I believe it was Wycliffe, John Wycliffe, coined the term Passover. Prior to Wycliffe, it was not an English word. So you're exactly right, even if I have the one wrong, the man wrong here. But it wasn't an English word, and Wycliffe, if memory serves me correctly, as he was translating his scripture, when he got to the New Testament, he came to recognize that he needed a word to separate all of this and to make this particular Jewish holiday. And so he made the word Passover. The Greek word is actually Pascha. And those of you who speak any kind of Latin languages know, for example, Spanish, the word for Easter is Pascua. Pascua. And I think also, by the way, when you later on this week get this book right here, Don't Pass Over Easter, A New Defense of Easter in Acts 17:4, you will learn why Pascua and Easter, the Latin word, and that being used for Easter, why they're so close there. But I believe that was John Wycliffe. Tell me if I'm right there, Scott. If you know the answer, maybe you just had the question. I don't know. But nonetheless, Herod wanted to hold Peter until after Easter, and Peter lived and the king didn't. You're right. That's how the story goes. Okay, let's see. Mel says the death of the death angel passed over the homes with the blood on the door headers and the sides. She's speaking of didn't know who coined the term. Okay, it makes so much sense that we assume, well, nobody coined the term. It was what it was. He passed over. And it was a simple coinage of a term, but prior to Wycliffe, again, if I have the understanding right, and I don't have the dates of, someone give me the dates for Wycliffe, but prior to that, it was not used in English literature, the particular word Passover. So you can arc to Arcturus from the handle of the Big Dipper. Those of you trying to find this, let's see here. I don't know if let's see, there we go. The Big Dipper is not in this particular picture, and I don't have one that is. Sorry about that. Let's see, is the Big Dipper in this picture? No, I don't think so. But it literally is the brightest star in the sky that is out there tonight. Mel, going back to these stars, these pictures drawn are quite a jump to me. I would never see this without this assumption. Now, she says, again, to go from this to this. It's quite the jump. And it's the shoulders and the knee basically that make this picture. And here you can see the two legs, one of them again kneeled, the other one kind of dragging behind here. So it sort of has that picture. You kind of see the shoulders that are there. But yeah, I do totally agree. Now, if I was just starting to study these things, I would say, I don't see that in there. You got a vivid imagination. You and Miss what was her name? Grace Livingston. You and Miss Livingston got woo. What an imagination. Spirit gun. But here's the interesting thing about that. You've got such consistency in the art down through the ages. So when you look for art of Buddhists, in fact, let's just pull up here Buddhists, and let's bring in some images. I will warn you, by the way, I haven't screened this. I have a search on moderate. Sometimes when you look up constellations, you need to do it carefully. So I apologize if any of these pictures are unseemly. But here's some of these pictures that come. Let's take a look at this one. A little bit different picture here, but he's got the bent leg. Here's Arcturus. That is at the knee. The dogs, remember those? He's got those. But see, he still has this sickle in his hand there. He's still got the sword. I don't know, of course, what date that picture is or who has done that picture, but it certainly is there. Here's a picture that might help you a little bit. Again, see, that's obviously just an artist rendering, but that's kind of how it is going to look if you go out. Arcturus is this lower star here, this bright star. And again, I wouldn't see that guy there, would you? Through all of that, just doesn't look like him to me. Here's a black and white drawing of him. This one's got a rope instead of a sickle, but he's still got a staff in his hand. Still got this bent one. It's done a little bit differently. That's obviously a little bit more of a modern drawing. Here is one. Again, knee bent, warrior. Here it calls him the herdsman, but he's a harvester, really, is what you've got. And there's obviously a modern rendering of him. It looks kind of like a Bernie sympathizer there, doesn't he? A communist. But the interesting thing here is this art just goes so consistently through all of this that you see it. And if you were to do the study, what you would see is that the artwork goes way back into history. And just becomes very interesting, and it's so consistent in all of the constellations, not just Buddhas, but in all the constellations. And remember, I think it's interesting, we won't dig into the scriptures right now, but in the book of Genesis, he gave the sun and the moon, the stars, the first thing he says is for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. So there's the chronological part of it, the seasons, the days, and the years, or months and years, I believe, something like that it says. But the first thing it says is signs. And you can follow that through. The signs is it's this thing that tells something. It's got some information. So he gave the stars for signs. This is right at the beginning, and he lets Adam name the animals. But the scripture specifically says that he put the spacing between the stars and he gave them their name. So there's a story up there above us, fascinating. And my plan really is that we will just try to bring in one of these constellations. I'll try to get something that's visible in the sky so you can go out and see it afterwards. If you're just so excited about the conversation, and you do some research on Miss Grace Livingston to see if she married Henry Brown, who just is as calm as a can of condensed milk, but might be a Russian spy. Can't sleep after this program's over, you got some things to research, or go outside and see the stars. That's what I'm going to do because I'm in the shed. I got to go to the house when I'm done right here. Okay, so back to Mel's comment. They seem such a jump. Indeed they do. I've never met anyone who said anything otherwise. I never go, oh, look, there's a warrior. He's got a sickle in his hand. I mean, he's got this spear in the other one. He's down on his knee. Nobody sees that. And on the other hand, everybody sees that when they do any kind of research. Very interesting that this comes through and was carried through on that. Mel mentions Jacob, who wrestled with God. Touched in the hip so that he would cause one foot to drag. And, in that sense, perhaps a type of Christ. We ought to look into that. I'm planning on going to the brook Jabbok. I've been there before. The plan is to be there twice. But I was supposed to go next month with a group and lead and do the teaching for them, but I don't think that's going to happen. We were supposed to depart April the 13th. That's technically still on. We'll see. If so, I'll bring you back a picture. Let's see. So Mel has a good question here on the timing of it. If it's prior to the fall, would that suggest that Adam would fall? I hate to say it was God's will that he fell. I don't hold to this, so that's confusing to me. We probably ought to check because I've been going by memory here on the stars, and excuse me here, I'm looking up. So in chapter 1, okay, evening and morning were the third day. God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day. Let them be for signs, for seasons, for days, for years. Okay, so definitely prior to the fall. We certainly don't know, when the explanation was given to Adam, obviously, whether it was before the fall or not before the fall. But, so what does this do then with the knowledge that was there? And is it as Tom says, a foreknowledge issue, Tom and Dan, a foreknowledge issue, or as Mel disagrees with this, God is a living God. He can learn, bring beings that are creative, his emotions real and true. So hard telling as you put that together. Certainly they were created for signs. Now going back to the ancients, as Bob mentions them here up in Austin, Minnesota. See, he says the ancients had nothing but time. That was close to true. And they were, I think, maybe much more learned than we are today, because they had time. Maybe because they didn't stay up all night talking, on internet programs here. And just seems like it's raining. I hear rain outside. My weather app doesn't say rain. So I have a metal roof here. We'll see how all that goes. Might be sleet. It's 36 degrees, kind of a warm night. That's why I got the short sleeves on here tonight. It's like mighty spring. 12 o'clock midnight, and it's only 36 degrees. It's going to be 48 tomorrow, people. Unfortunately, kind of cloudy. Okay, let's see. Have we caught everything? Oh boy, I just got to jump. Yeah, I don't think that... I am not one that believes that all things were decreed, which is what Calvinism suggests. As Mel speaks here, Calvinism suggests all things are decreed. I don't think that they are decreed. It is a difficult thing to put this foreknowledge of God and the decrees of God. The Calvinists trip over this all the time. And I think that foreknowledge does not require decree. And yet at the same time, there are some things that God decrees. Did he decree the fall? I don't see that, that he decreed the fall. I think that would be going too far in all of that. I tell you what, it's midnight. It's time to go to bed, isn't it? I got to get up and work tomorrow, because I got an appointment with you at 10 a.m. We're going to do Ask the Theologian. I'll take your biblical, theological, worldview questions. I'll look forward to it. Maybe I'll have more information about Don't Pass Over Easter and show you where that's available. Or I do know that by then, one of the things that we will have is the blog updated, this scientific prediction model we'll have from March 24th. And go back and look, follow him every day, say, he missed it. You watch, say, did he change his model? Which a good scientist does, by the way. If they recognize, no, my hypothesis was not correct, I need to adjust for this, it's what you do. And so we'll watch and see how he does that, and find whether we can continue to have some encouragement that we are approaching the time, but we're not there yet, approaching the time when the number of daily additions to the total begins to go down instead of up. This week looks like it's going to be more every day. It's going to be an increasing upward addition to this pandemic. So let's watch all of that again. That is on the blog. And if you're interested, you can click a button right there, and you will save 30% on the personal size giant print reference Bible. That would be for those of you who have to use those. Don't I look studious there? Even in my polo shirt. I'm glad you have been with us. It's been fun tonight. We'll get some newspaper articles. We'll get some stars. We'll take you. We'll talk about news of the normal, the abnormal, like Mrs. Grace Livingston and the pajama-clad cop that catched the kiss-hungry robber. That's abnormal, isn't it? And a little bit of the paranormal. I guess the stars is as close as we got tonight to the paranormal. So delighted that you have joined with me tonight. It's always a blessing. RandyWhiteMinistries.org. While we're all just struggling through this together, Let's have some good times some of these evenings like this. I'll let you know next time I'm back. Again, it's a little bit random when we're on and a little bit low tech through all of it. But it certainly is such a blessing to have you in the Theological Insomniac. I'm going to disappear here in just a moment, but I'll be back tomorrow from Studio B, Studio Shed, doing Ask the Theologian, and I look forward to seeing you then. Until then, I hope you sleep well. God bless you.